I'm glad you're here. So today is called The Direction of Your Sign. We lost my cousin David last year, and for years we all went to his house for the Lawler family Christmas. It was every year, and my cousin Becky and I always had a hard time getting there because we didn't know the roads. So I even tried the whole GPS thing so that this woman could get me to my party. So I never could get it right. You know, I would always just drive around till something looked familiar. And, one year I said, okay, I'm really going to pay attention. I'm really going to listen to this woman on this GPS to get me there. So I'm going and I'm driving and I'm paying close attention. I'm turning on the roads that she tells me to turn on. And I keep following her directions. And then I get to a road where she tells me to turn, and she says the name of the road, but the sign I'm looking at doesn't say that name. It's not the same. She's telling me to turn right on this road, but that's not the road sign I'm looking at. So I think, well, maybe she's a little off. So I'll go to the next street. So I travel on straight and go to the next street, and that's when I realized this is the same wrong way I've been going all these years. And I can get there from here, but it's going to take me all around and back to get there. So, I just continued on my same wrong way that I had been going on. I finally realized that the sign where she had told me to turn, since it didn't match, those signs had been turned slightly. So that's why my road signs wasn't matching what she was telling me. So, I never could get it right, and I still haven't got it right. Maybe next time. So, they really probably should have put a camera on me and Becky on our travels to go find David's house all these years, because the family probably would have been very entertained. We weren't even in the same car. She's in there with her family, I'm with my family. We probably even passed each other several times trying to get to David's house. Both going the wrong way. Both of us lost. So, just like those road signs are supposed to point us in the right direction, our lives are supposed to point others to Jesus. Our lives are supposed to point others in the right direction. In John 1, 6 through 9, we're talking about John here, and verses 6 through 9 says, "There was a man sent from God whose name was John. The same came for a witness, to bear witness of the light, that all men through him might believe. He was not that light, but was sent to bear witness of that light. That was the true light, which lighteth every man that cometh into the world." So John's life, his whole purpose, was to point others to Christ. He came to bear witness of Jesus, that Jesus would come to save people from their sin. Some thought that he was the Christ, and some thought that maybe he was Elias, or that he was a prophet. And in verses 23 through 27, he said, "I am the voice of one crying in the wilderness, make straight the way of the Lord, as said the prophet Isaiah. And they said, which were sent were the Pharisees. And they asked him and said unto him, Why baptist thou then, if thou be not that Christ or Elias, neither that prophet? John answered and said, I baptize with water, but there standeth one among you, whom ye know not. He it is that who comes after me is preferred before me, whose shoes latchet I am not worthy to unloose." So John concentrated on helping others come to know Christ. He was constantly pointing others away from himself and pointing them to Christ. He spent his life bearing witness to the one that was coming after him. That was his sole purpose. And in verse 27, he says, I am not even worthy to untie his shoes. John humbled himself and was an obedient servant. And then when you flip over to John 3, 28 through 31, it says, Ye yourselves bear me witness that I said, I am not the Christ, but but that I am sent before him. He that hath the bride is the bridegroom, but the friend of the bridegroom which standeth and heareth him rejoiceth greatly because the bridegroom's voice. This my joy therefore is fulfilled. He must increase, but I must decrease. He that cometh from above is above all. He that is of the earth is earthly, and speaketh of the earth. He that cometh from heaven is above all. And the note there on verse 29 says the most important man at a wedding, referring to Jesus, and then the friend or the best man is there only to help the bridegroom, which describes the role of John the Baptist. You know, John has been sent to prepare the way for the Messiah. And I think verse 30 is one of my favorite verses when John says, he must increase, but I must decrease. You know, it's not about me, it's about him. It's about Jesus. You know, our lives should point others to Christ. You know, our lives should be pointing people in the right direction. We don't need to be living a life that is misleading to others. We don't need to live a life that's pointing others in all different directions. You know, so are we giving clear and precise directions for others to follow? Or are we being confusing and sending slightly twisted road signs? You know, John made it very clear and explained very clearly who he was and who he came to represent. And he didn't want there to be any confusion. He wanted it to be very clear who he came to represent. And that's how our lives should be. Our lives, you know, should be pointing to the one that came to save us all. Our lives should be very clearly pointing others to Christ, just like John was doing. We don't need to be sending any mixed signals or twisted signals. Our lives need to be that of pointing others to Christ. So I hope that you have a great rest of the day and a rest of the week. And I will see you next time. Thanks, guys.